What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today let's compare the new Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra versus last year's Galaxy S21 Ultra. I started with this one first because I think it's important. A lot of people have been asking me, should I upgrade? So let's take a look at the differences. And yes, I'll be answering the question that everybody wants to know. Are the cameras actually better? I'll give you that camera test comparison that you need to help you make the best buying decision. First, let's start with the unboxing. This is a very familiar unboxing experience. You just get the phone, a packet here that holds some documentation, and a USB-C cable, and you get a SIM card removal tool, and that's about it. No charger in the box as usual. I think it's a missed opportunity in my opinion because the Ultra supports 45-watt wire charging and it would have been nice to get one in the box, but you can just pick up a GAN charger like this one from the channel sponsor Spigen. It's cheaper, it's smaller, same 45 watts, and it comes with a braided cable, so this one is a no-brainer. These are expensive phones, so the first thing you should do is be ready with the case. You guys know me, I've been rocking with Spigen forever, and my favorite for the Galaxy S22 Ultra this year has to be the thin fit. I have the matte black Ultra, and this case keeps the device slim so you don't get all the bulk, but you get that protection that you need. It's so clean and minimal, and it's perfect for the cameras, protects them nicely while remaining thin, so this is my go-to right now. If you get one of these pretty colors, the Ultra Hybrid is hard to resist. You know it's one of my all-time favorites. With this clear case, you can show off that amazing color, and it has the updated blue resin anti-yellowing material that keeps it clearer longer. The Ultra Hybrid S takes it to the next level because it has that built-in improved reinforced metal kickstand that you can use in landscape to watch videos anywhere that you want, or you can use it in portrait mode to create content for social media or take video calls hands-free. The sleeper case that I've been putting in the rotation lately is the Slim Armor CS. To be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of this lineup until they updated it, but now I'm really digging the two-tone look with that texture up top, and there's just something about having your cards and ID just a slide away. For the doubters out there, try it. This is totally underrated. So I will leave links to all of the cases down below. Pick up one now so you're ready before that phone hits your doorstep. And if you're a gamer, check out the Cryo Armor. This has a nice combined graphite layer and silicone thermal layer that can absorb and dissipate heat. And it has a fire honeycomb design. I will link this new one too below. I think you'll dig it. When looking at these two phones side by side, besides the minor differences, they are very similar. The S21 Ultra has the softer lines like the S series was known for, while the S22 Ultra basically looks like a Note 20 Ultra in design. Don't tell anyone, but I think this was supposed to be the Note 21 Ultra. They both have 6.8-inch displays with the same resolution and 120Hz refresh rate, but the S22 Ultra can go down to 1Hz to save battery life, which is great, but honestly, they both look awesome. You may notice the bumped up brightness in bright daylight. The S22 Ultra has a peak brightness of 1750 nits over the 1500 nits on the old one. They both have 5000 mAh batteries, but I haven't used the S22 Ultra long enough to determine battery life, but the S21 Ultra was fantastic with battery life, so I'm assuming that it's going to be the same. The Galaxy S21 Ultra is powered by last year's Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 in the US, and it's still plenty fast and has held up great over the last year, still feels fast and fluid, but the S22 Ultra has the new Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset, so that is the latest and greatest. I don't think you'll see a huge gain from day to day, but you may see some improvements on the graphics side of things once they optimize some games, so if you are a gamer, you'll be happy about this. But trust me, as soon as I can get an Exynos 2200 model here, I'll definitely do a comparison, so make sure that you stick around for that one. They both support the S Pen, but it's not the same experience. You can get a case for the S21 Ultra, but it's not the same as having it built into the body like the S22 Ultra. This is a perfect scenario for everyone, because if you're that person that uses it constantly, you will always have it with you. But if you're like me and rarely use it, you get reminded of how great that is to have the S Pen built in, especially for camera control. Taking selfies is so much easier, and having this remote shutter can be awesome to capture some family photos when you're on vacation. You don't have this feature on the S21 Ultra, but if you just use the pen to navigate sometimes and take some notes, then it'll work just fine. You just have to buy the pen separately, so that does add to the cost. Both of these phones pretty much have everything that you need in a flagship phone. 5G connectivity, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging, IP68 water resistance, the same ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, Like I said, these are just so similar. The only thing on specs from last year is that the S21 Ultra went up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, while the S22 Ultra caps out at 12 gigabytes of RAM. Even on the 1 terabyte storage model, I don't think that's a big deal in my opinion, but let me know what you think about that. Pricing is a little bit difficult to talk about right now because there are some amazing pre-order deals for the Galaxy S22 Ultra. You won't believe how much money you can save with trade-ins and incentives, so I'll leave those linked down below so you can definitely check them out. But if you can catch the S21 Ultra on sale, then it definitely is something to consider because I think I've seen this phone down to about $800 to $900 before. So if you can catch it on sale, jump on that. So the big decider is going to be the camera, and on paper the specs look the same: a 40 megapixel front-facing camera, the 108 megapixel main camera, and 2 dedicated 10 megapixel zoom lenses, one 3x and one 10x, up to 100x hybrid zoom. Even though the specs look exactly the same, Samsung says that they are updated sensors, so I had to go test that out yesterday. So first, let's talk about the daytime pictures. To make things fair, I left the scene optimizer on since it's on by default. All of the images and video were taken in auto mode with 0 edits. Everything that you're seeing is straight out of the camera. You are going to notice some differences to the processing this year, generally that the new S22 Ultra has more contrast, creating deeper blacks. This is more apparent in scenarios with varying light sources or bright conditions. Some outcomes are more subtle than others. Now this is a more dramatic difference here on the sidewalk art, but this here is more of what you'll see. My shadow is darker here. Can you see it? After looking at a ton of pictures side by side, the S21 Ultra tends to produce the slightly brighter shot, so this is going to be a personal preference thing on general photos. But I don't think that you should be surprised that the images look very similar, and they should, but I am happy to report that there are improvements that I'm seeing across the board. First is detail. Almost every picture picks up just a little bit more information. Take a look at Pluto. Even without punching in, you can see a clear difference, but when you punch in, you can see all of that texture. This is impressive. This could be due to Samsung's new binning structure on the new phone, and while some results are better than others, I am glad to see the results aren't exactly the same between the two cameras. You may notice some color differences too. Take a look at the sky here. The results will vary throughout the video, so you will see that. But I did also notice that the light flares during the day looked less visible. Take a look at the S21 Ultra here. That's not in the S22 Ultra's image. And take a look at the purple flares. They are there in both, but it's less prominent on the new phone. This could be due to the clearer glass covering the sensor on the S22 Ultra. I was just seeing this across the images. Now, most of the time you will get very subtle results like this. The purple is just better controlled. But in real world situations like this portrait mode shot, the combination of the higher contrast processing could give you a better result like this. So let me know what you think. Here is another shot to show you that this wasn't a one-off result. The skin tone is a little richer this year, and I think that's just due to the heavier contrast. So I think Samsung is trying to work on fixing the brightening of the skin. I noticed this even more on the shot of my wife here. A lot of people will probably choose the S21 Ultra because it's brighter and more vibrant, but I prefer the highlight control on the S22 Ultra. I would eventually like to see some of this contrast dialed down, but remember, this is Samsung, so a few camera updates later and this can be a completely different experience later. So I don't want to focus too much on the things that can be changed later, like the HDR. I was noticing that on most occasions the S21 Ultra was handling the bright areas better with better highlight control. It's not drastic, but you can see it here, but I think a lot of this has to do with just how well they've tuned the S21 Ultra camera over the last year. So many software updates, and I can assume the same will happen with the S22 Ultra, so keep that in mind when you're looking at these images. The 108 megapixel mode has a new detail enhancer, so let me show you what that can do. Here's the image with a 300% scale crop, and it doesn't look that different, but when you go into 1000% scale, you can clearly see more detail and less noise, so this is an improvement for sure. I can't say I got the same results every time with detail enhancer. Sometimes I actually got a slightly softer image, so this is going to depend on the scenario. Like this 1000% scale crop, the panels themselves are sharper on the S21 Ultra. Here's an example of the 108 megapixel shot without detail enhancer, and they both look fantastic. Again, cropping in slightly, you won't see a difference at all, but when you punch in heavily like this, you can clearly see the improvement in noise reduction, so I like what I'm seeing here. They both have the same zoom setup, but I'm seeing some slight improvements. Here is the 3x, and I'm not seeing a big difference there, but the 10x, you can see that things are sharper and more detailed. You can see that more when you go into the 30x image. Look at the flowers in the back here. It's muddier on the S21 Ultra. And the 100x, just for fun, take a look at the concrete. It's retaining more of that texture and detail. While I can't say that these changes are super drastic, I'm seeing minor improvements all across the board. Here's a macro shot, it's sharper all around, and you can really see that increase in contrast here. I can't say that I love the contrast boost everywhere, but it does look like it's moving towards the right direction with these flower shots. I also see less fringing at the same distances as you can see here. So once the HDR is tuned a little better, the S22 Ultra with some software updates will be an improved experience during the day. But let's give it up for the S21 Ultra here, because this camera a year later is still incredible, and I think it can go head to head with the best that's out there still. The best way to describe the new camera system is an amalgamation of refinements that add up to an overall better daytime experience. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. The video during the day looks very similar. Here's a walking stabilization sample, and I apologize, the timeline of my video is in 24 frames per second, and this was shot in 30 frames per second on the phone, so that's why it looks slightly slowed down. If I didn't do this, it would look majorly choppy. I don't see a big difference on daytime video, which was expected. Daytime video is already great from modern Samsung devices anyways, but punching in, I did notice that it's slightly sharper, but the big difference is here in the noise reduction. Take a look here, and for those of you watching on smaller screens, let me punch in even further so you can see it clearly. They both do well in harsher light conditions, but this is what I meant by HDR tuning. Jumping into the 3x zoom, I do like how the newer phone handles the skin tone here. It's a little less red, but the highlights need work. So again, when the software updates hit this phone, I will make sure I follow up to show you what has changed. Okay, so low light performance, what you're here for, it's all about the same approach. While it's not drastically different, there are some improvements. First big difference, if you're going to take photos without night mode, you're going to get better pictures. Pretty much in every shot that I took without night mode, it was better. Like this one, it's night and day. Look at the trees and even the people walking, so it's much sharper. And this is with people moving, so this is nice to see. This is another great example. The S21 Ultra does look muddier without night mode. Punch in here and look at the detail difference on the ground. It's a much better outcome. But when you kick in night mode, you can see both do a great job of sharpening things and collecting more detail. Here it is punched into the same area. Now, I know what you're already saying. Danny, the S21 Ultra looks so much brighter. It's better. And if you were one of those people, then yes, you definitely will prefer the S21 Ultra, and I won't be mad at that at all, because the processing has changed this year, where again, the heavier contrast is evident on the S22 Ultra, so I can see this being a huge preference battle. But I think Samsung is following more of Apple's footsteps, letting night shots look more like night shots, and I actually don't mind this move. Here, I prefer the darker image with more contrast, and I'm happy to say that the night mode shots do have more detail. Punch in and you can see that in the tree. That is a nice improvement. I personally don't like when the sky has this light bleed type of look. I know that some of you like that, but I prefer the darker sky here because it's more accurate to the scene. But I'm not going to lie and say that the S21 Ultra doesn't look better sometimes, because like in this ultra wide shot, that brighter processing looks better in this scenario. So some might be disappointed that night mode isn't turning night into daytime, but in this shot, I like how you can see some of the sky detail, but the rest of the sky is black. But this does come with the downside of the shadows being crushed on the tree. So some updating to the software is definitely needed. In some scenarios like this on the main sensor, the outcomes are almost the same, besides the bumped up contrast of course. But I want to know from you guys, does the left ultra wide night mode shot look better with the increased shadows and more vibrant colors, or do you like the right one with a darker rendition? If you've ever been here before, then this is what it really looks like. This is the ultra wide shot without night mode. I'm definitely curious to read what you guys think, but I would like maybe a in-between of these two. Or the game changer would be if they let you choose the night mode, bright or natural. Now Samsung, if you take this idea, then give me some credit, okay? That's all I ask, because sometimes the extra contrast can affect the skin tones. It can bring that orange look into the skin. This is what I mean by following Apple's footsteps, because this all seems too familiar. It does all depend on the scenario though. This tone is slightly better here on the S22 Ultra in this shot of my son, but in night mode, that extra bump really helps the S21 Ultra. But I do have to mention that the S22 Ultra is about a second faster every time with less exposure time This one exposed for 2 seconds on the S22 Ultra and 3 seconds on the S21 Ultra. 108 megapixel at night has been improved. There's actually night mode on it now, which pops up when conditions are met. It can be a little finicky and not pop up until it's really dark, but man, the results are fantastic. Take a look at this one, pretty standard image, but when you punch in, you can see the difference clearly in this wall. Wow. And crop in even more, and it's game over. Here is one more. They look about the same without crop, but punch in and pay attention to the background here. It's really soft, and then punch in again and you can really see the noise cleanup and the detail difference. So the 108 megapixel night shots are great. The front-facing camera is also a weird one. If you use the bin mode that is defaulted to, then the S21 Ultra has the sharper shot. I do prefer the S22 Ultra in this one, but in terms of detail, the S21 Ultra gets it. Here's another one, and you can see the subtle softening more clearly on the S22 Ultra, but it does look less processed and over-sharpened, so that's a move in the right direction. But you can also see this on portrait mode, so I think that the S21 Ultra does a better job on portrait mode shots. Now, what's interesting is that if you turn on the 40 megapixel mode, it does a complete flip-flop, which makes zero sense. Look at how much better the S22 Ultra is, the texture of my hoodie is better, and the overall image is clearer. Even in this very dark scene, the S22 Ultra's 40 megapixel mode does better, so I would shoot in this mode if you're using the S22 Ultra. There are just so many more images to share, so I think I'll include these in my S22 Ultra review, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel. The iPhone 13 Pro comparison is coming next, so I think that's going to be very interesting. The improvements in zoom lenses on night mode is also something to consider, and here is that Epcot night mode shot comparison I promised you on Twitter. They are both pretty great. I am glad to report that nighttime video did get an improvement. Take a look at the trees and the people walking by. It's less noisy and more detailed, but let me punch in so you can see the clear difference. This is a decent performance gain over last year's S21 Ultra. I think this one is actually a better example because it's a little more complicated. Punch in here and the detail increase and noise reduction is very noticeable, so kudos to Samsung. It's finally getting better. Now, the S21 Ultra video is still brighter, so I think a lot of people, besides the technical differences, might prefer this look, but the more natural video is what I like. The plants are accurate to the scene and not oversaturated, but this is definitely going to be personal preference. You can see this better in the walking stabilization shot. It's brighter video, but it's not better video because the noise is so much better on the new S22 Ultra. If you want an example of what 3x zoom video looks like, here you go. There are some slight improvements, but it's not as drastic as the main sensor is. But that 10x though, wow, what a difference. So much better in every way. So while I think this still isn't the best night video out there, we're definitely moving in that right direction, because even the ultra wide video looks better in low light. So the processing improvements all around finally make this a better nighttime experience. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to make sure I included some front-facing video samples. So I'm going to get some sleep, work on the next camera comparison, hit that like button if you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in the next one.